Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Hello, and welcome to this very special episode of the Trend Detection Podcast. As you can see, I'm not at home and I'm not in our usual studio. We're actually in the Mendix office in London, which is really exciting. And I'm joined today by Nick Ford, who's Chief Growth Officer for Mendix. So really great to have you on the podcast, Nick.
No, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for coming to Mendix to run it.
No, it's fantastic. Looking
forward to the conversation.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about digital transformation, try and get, a new angle, because we talked about, there's lots of content about digital transformation out there, and we want to, and Mendix is doing some really amazing things, as I experienced recently at a Siemens event in Munich, but we'll come on to that in a sec. But I guess first of all, it'd be great for listeners just to know a bit more about you, Nick, your role, sure, and a bit of your background as well.
Well, I've been in the software industry for about 35 years, started back in the 80s as a COBOL programmer. I've been with Mendix about 13 years. I guess my expertise is really in abstracted and automated software development, and obviously the combination of that career is joining Mendix and helping to sort of promote low code as a solution for the rapid delivery of the myriad of software that we need to develop today to keep our businesses afloat. I mean, it's an old adage, but every company is a software company, and therefore building more software more rapidly is very important. So exciting times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots going on in our space at the minute, I'd say. But I mean, let's start very broad, and with the big question is, but it's more personal to you rather than a broader question, but what is digital transformation to you? What does it mean to you in your sort of day?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think it means lots of things to lots of different people, exactly. And everybody looks at their transformation agenda through the lens of their organisation, through their personal lens and so on. I think for me, it's about bringing digital technologies into the core of your business and helping you to operate differently. I think transformation needs to be transformation. It's about how do we want to do things in the future? How can we use technology to help us be better? Either that's either be more performant, efficiency, new customer engagements, whatever that objective might be. It's about using digital technologies to do that. But it's also equally about the cultural aspects of transforming a business, which I think is probably equally, if not more important, as part of your digital transformation agenda. How do you look at both the technology aspects, which I'd argue is probably the easier side of things, and then how do you bring in cultural change, organizational change, and then defining to you what transformation, digital transformation means. I think what's interesting is it's quite hard. And it's a risky business, and some people choose not to embark on a transformational agenda in that respect. So the question is, are you in the race? And when you are in the race, how can you make sure that you actually come out ahead of the competition? So lots of factors involved in that. When we speak to CEOs, 60% of the people that we're speaking to at that level generally have a transformational agenda, or they're working on digital transformation as an organizational structure. So we're starting to see that happen more and more.
And do you find, speaking to CEOs as well, obviously the agenda's at that level, but do you feel that it filters, or it is filtering through to all levels of the business as well? I guess that's the challenge for them, isn't it? Is talking about it at that level, but also making sure it's like that culture change you mentioned throughout the business.
It is. I mean, transformation happens everywhere, right? You're transforming the business, therefore you have to touch everything from internal customers, employees, partnerships, whatever it might be. So it does, and it has to permeate through the organisation. It has to be something that people understand what you mean when you say digital transformation. So there's a common agenda, common understanding. If you don't have that, then it's very difficult for people to follow the journey and to embark on that journey and participate and help you to transform without sort of pockets and isolated pockets of great things happening, but not connected to a transformational agenda. And we see that a lot, right? Organizations that are building software organically ground up using often low-code technologies, but sometimes end up with a sprawling landscape of disconnected applications because they're solving departmental problems. And really, what we'd advocate is transformation, and digital transformation is not a project. It's something that has no end, really. You should always be transforming. So it's a journey. In that respect, you need to think about what's the intake, who's going to be involved in solving the problems, how do you bring multiple different participants together to ensure that you converge on an outcome that's based in value and helps to move the business forward. So a lot of factors involved, and which is why it's complicated and people find it very, very difficult.
Yeah, and of course it's not one size fits all. I guess from everything you've said so far, there's just so many different factors. I mean, what are some of those factors that sort of come into play?
Well, I think for me, we look at the lens of when we're speaking to our customers, we look at the lens of digital transformation through what we call the sort of 5 Ps, which is we look at your portfolio, we look at the people, the process, and we look at promotion and the platform. So we tend to look at those 5 Ps as a lens through which we help organizations think about all of the factors involved in their transformational agenda. So, I mean, if we run through them, a portfolio, first of all, we're generally looking at building software. So Mendix is a low-code platform. We help organizations to build the software that they need to drive that transformation in their organization, to digitize processes, digitize engagement with customers, historically move paper-based processes into online processes, automate, all those kinds of things. So portfolio is incredibly important because, as I said earlier, what sometimes happens is, the business is off building applications. They're trying to solve problems independently, and that's not a bad thing. That's always happened. And I think we want to encourage the business to be part of the development process involved in building new software as part of that digital transformation agenda. But the important thing is we need to make sure we're building the right things, right? And we're not duplicating effort. We don't end up with this fragmented landscape. So we'd advocate sort of taking a look at what is the portfolio intake. How do you think about all of the things that you need to develop as part of your agenda, and then to decide how you want to develop them. So assess which applications or which software is right for development, perhaps which initiatives need to be combined into bigger initiatives that perhaps are taken on by IT and not business. So portfolio intake, understanding the value of the portfolio. Once you understand that, you're able to place bets, right? It's all about when am I going to invest my pounds or dollars, whatever it might be, into those initiatives that move us forward on a transformational basis. So portfolio assessment we think is incredibly important. Then people, I'd argue that probably in that order or perhaps on a par. What people do you want involved in the process? Do they have the skills to get involved? How do you bring them on the journey, continuously create methodologies for people to collaborate better? So people's really, really important part of it, the culture aspects of that. Then you have the underlying platform and technology that facilitates it. So, I'd argue that, software development and transformation is a team sport. You've got to bring all these participants together to work together with different skills and different disciplines. So collaboration is incredibly important. So you need a methodology to support that. So processes that underpin your transformation agenda from start to structure to scale. And then finally promotion, which I think is very underlooked, and when we talk to a lot of CIOs, but I think it's one of the most important factors, is you need to be internally championing the work you're doing to make sure that everyone understands the value of the work that you're doing, and celebrating that, promoting it internally. Because that's how you sort of get this momentum that's needed to continue over time. So long answer to your question, but I think there's a lot of things that I think are incredibly important for organisations to think about factors influence.
And is that like a Mendix philosophy, the different points that's what?
Yeah, we have a digital execution practice, and I mean over the last sort of 18 years or so that we've been doing this, we've been involved in helping organizations in the early days of taking on the challenge of building better software faster, such as speed of development. How can I develop software more quickly? How can I use different skills to develop software? But more importantly, how can I create software that actually is fit for purpose? So often we think that that's about bringing business experts into the process alongside technical experts who combine forces and create software. And over that time, we've engaged with many, many companies. Some have been in relatively tactical implementations of new software, but as the years have gone by, we've got involved with big organizations who really want to build this capability to be able to transform through software. And so as part of that, we created what we call our digital execution practice, which is a methodology which takes organizations through the 5 Ps that we talked about, but then also through what we call start, structure, scale, which is how do you break down this journey into manageable chunks where do you start? How do you move from start into structure? And how do you move from structure into scale? And there are various aspects inside that methodology which allow organizations to really keep on pace with their transformation agenda.
And I guess one of the questions I was going to ask, I think it's part of the digital execution side, but it's to do with your sort of digital maturity. So I wanted to talk about culture actually in a second as well, but you have a tool that actually assesses digital maturity.
And it's based on those 5 Ps actually.
Oh, okay.
The maturity assessment, you can go to the Mendix website and actually run your own personal assessment. We'll probably put up the link at some point afterwards. But yes, the maturity assessment is based on those 5 key principles. So we take you through a series of questions that identify your maturity in terms of what technology you might have, what methodology you have. So for example, are you agile? It seems obvious, but are you using agile principles and methodologies? What kind of people do you already have? Citizen development? Do you feel that business needs to be involved in development process? Have you actually moved IT into the business? So there's lots of questions that we ask around the framework of those 5 Ps, which will actually then give you a sense of where you are on that maturity scale and how ready you are for really taking on digital from the perspective of long-term transformation. As I said before, it's we believe that there's no destination here; it's a continuous and ongoing journey. But you can take the assessment, I think, on our website.
Yeah, and does that cover sort of a cultural maturity side as well?
It does. It asks questions about your maturity of the organisation with regard to things like how do you feel about business developing applications? How do you feel about the business participating more in the software development process? So it takes into account whether or not you're able to bring together that truly collaborative approach that's required to do this properly. Look, and I can't say this strongly enough, human beings come together in villages as teams, we're better together. Just general the way that we solve problems, we're better together. So collaboration is fundamental to transforming an organization. So we look at the very early stages of maturity when we think about how organizations are structured. Are you siloed into everything that's in software development sits in IT? You can create an idea in the business, but then you need to fund it and get resources to actually create a project to do that. So, or do you have a little bit more of a mature model which thinks about how ideas can permeate from business and IT and are funded perhaps in a different way? Maybe teams come together through agile, fusion teams, those kinds of things. So there is quite a bit of assessment around organizational maturity, people-wise. Culture's hard, right? Culture's a difficult one, and it needs to be, set at the very highest level within an organization. But we certainly look at it through that lens.
And is it often overlooked as well? Because I know that the temptation, especially in our Senseye world as well, it's sort of there's a temptation to focus on the cool technology, especially when you throw AI and all this other stuff, or low-code maybe into the equation. But is that part of it often overlooked? Cause it's we've got this cool technology, so let's just deploy it and off we go, kind of
massively overlooked. In fact, one of our biggest challenges when we're talking to customers that really, identify us as a company that can help them in their transformational agenda, digital transformation agenda, it's difficult to try and get them out of the technology discussion mode. It's often, can you show me your technology? How does it help me build software faster? How can I generate applications that work in these kinds of landscapes? And typically what we're trying to do is to say, we can do all of that, but let's just take a step back and understand, even if you did take the Mendix platform, how successful would you be with the structure that you have? Mm-hmm. Do you really, have a clear view of where you want to go with the technology? Because there are things that we're incredibly good at, and there's probably things that other technologies are good at. So let's understand the landscape. Let's take a look at that. Let's try and assess the maturity up front, so we can then prescribe how the technology underpins that. Mendix has been around for a long time. We're a great product. We've never demonstrated Mendix to somebody said they don't like it, but it's a bit of a false positive. You can love the technology but not get the most out of it. So you've really got to understand those cultural aspects, the collaborative nature of building more software faster, and what is your transformation agenda, and how do you get value out of it? How do you assess value? How do you first understand whether you're delivering on the value, and how do you then promote that value inside the organisation to make sure that everyone realises that the huge amount of investment that's going into these initiatives has a payback, because everything needs to have a payback at the end of the day. We need to make money or save money somehow. So very important part that's missed an awful lot.
Yeah, and I think, and it's a word you've used already, is the collaboration. And I think sometimes with that relationship as well, because a lot of things are transactional in this world. So you pay your money, you get your technology, and off you go. Yeah. But really, it's an ongoing collab. In order for it to work, deployment to work, and to get real business impact, it's the vendor and the customer work together, right?
Absolutely.
Well, they have to.
Well, they have to. I mean, I said earlier, I think that's what we do as human beings. That's how we solve big, complex problems. We collaborate, we abstract, and we automate. We build tools to make it easier. We build tools that other people can do complex things that perhaps they couldn't do before. I always think about sort of the manufacturing one. It's not a great analogy, but it always amazes me that something like a large aircraft can have components built all over the world, but can be assembled in one location and it works. And you can fly that with people, and that's a complex problem solved through abstraction, automation, standardization, all those kinds of things. But yet we haven't brought that materially to the software development world. So I think it's important to look at how we bring multiple participants together, because the skills, what we want to build, is often locked in the minds of the business, the people that live and breathe the processes every day. Then IT can turn those ideas into software, but the translation mechanism between is difficult. So the closer you can get them together, the more they can collaborate, the better the outcome. The quicker, the better. I think collaboration doesn't stop inside the organisation. I think what's important is it needs to extend beyond the walls of the business, outside the gates of the business. You need to collaborate with your customers, you need to collaborate with your partners, you need to create an ecosystem where everybody understands the rules of the game, can participate, and everything works together. So I think those analogies of building these large complex machines are a great analogy, because I can build the wings in, one country, and then put it onto a plane and it flies. But you can only do that when there's a clear understanding of the rules of engagement and how we collaborate together. So we're interested in making sure that organizations can do that both internally and as part of their ecosystem of partners and customers and vendors.
And how about more specifically towards IT and OT? And we talk about like integration, but actually more the integration, let's call it IT-OT collaboration.
Yeah.
Or as we've started to call it within Senseye, it's like building one culture for IT-OT.
Yeah.
So those sort of themes we've started.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could probably comment more than me, so maybe you need to answer it from your perspective. but in our world, I think that's one of the more challenging areas, because I think there is generally a sort of us and them often between IT and OT, and that's historical. And it's a barrier we've got to break, right? I don't think we solve the problems that we need to solve when it comes to improving efficiencies, cutting waste, being more sustainable when you look at the lens of manufacturing without bringing those technologies together. And for me, where we tend to find challenges there, it's the very sort of the problems we find, they're often very technical in nature. It's about bringing technology together to integrate. You've got things running on the shop floor, things running in the back, modeling data, collecting data from connected devices, ERP systems. And so it tends to boil down very quickly to a sort of technology discussion about how do we get the landscape working together. But that won't work unless the people work together. So I don't know how Senseye look at it, but it seems to me to be an ongoing challenge that.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels, and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.